Wednesday, hump day, I think they call it. Well, good morning, Wareham. It is February 13th. We have a great show here for you. The news headlines, weather report, and today in history. So since it is Wednesday, which means we'll be featuring some school-related topics. So in today's show, we're going to take a look inside the Minot Forest Elementary School, and we're also going to hear from Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood on why Wareham deserves a new elementary school. But first, I would like to take this moment to thank Not Your Average Antiques, an antique shop down Cranberry Highway, for donating the props that you see in the Good Morning Wareham set. So stay tuned because the weather, traffic report, and news headlines are next. Right, so the fun is over. Back to reality. Clear roads and warmer temperatures. Mostly cloudy skies today, high at 44 degrees. A little windy out there with 15 to 25 miles per hour winds. Mainly clear sky tonight with low at 27. Enjoy an abundance of sunshine on Thursday, high at nearly 40 degrees and winds at 15 to 25 miles per hour. Cloudy on Thursday night with low at 32 degrees. So as you heard, the weather conditions are terrific, which means the roads are terrific, which means have a safe drive. Now to the news. There were a few news stories over the week, and here are the news headlines. Wareham Week newspaper was bustling with these headlines. Preserving a Great Neck property is a $2.6 million project. The Massachusetts Audubon Society is racing to raise $2.6 million this week as the Sacred Heart Seminar on Great Neck Road in Wareham prepares to sell to a private buyer later this month. The land being sold by the seminary is 110 acres of the coastal property comprised of salt marshes, beaches, and forested upland. According to Mass Audubon, 15 acres of this newly available property is open to the development of any kind, including commercial. The remaining land is under a conservation restriction and will remain protected from development. And now some headlines from the wicked local newspaper. Shangri-La Playground plans are moving ahead. A neighborhood organizer, Carol Malson, said during the Open Space Committee that plans to rebuild the Shangri-La Playground are moving ahead. The neighborhood organizers are aiming to have the playground space for small children 5 and under and another for 12 and under, including resurfaced basketball courts. The neighborhood is also looking to get a pavilion area for families to be able to sit and picnic, rain or shine. And you have heard of the saying, out with the old and in with the new? Well, not likely, however, kind of similar as the First Congregational Church of Wareham welcomes a new pastor. The First Congregational Church of Wareham announced a new interim minister, the Reverend Virginia Child. The Reverend has served churches in Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Michigan, sometimes as interim, sometimes as a settled pastor. Beyond local church, Child served on association and conference boards and committees. And do you need a new hobby? Because the Wareham Land Trust is hosting Bluebird Birdhouse Workshop. The Wareham Land Trust is hosting a Bluebird Birdhouse Workshop Saturday, February 16th from 10 a.m. to noon at the Wareham Free Library located at 59 Marion Road, led by Tom Kinski, an advisory board member. To learn about future events or get involved, visit the WarehamLandTrust.org. That is it for today's headlines. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break. For today's story of the day, we are going to tour the closed Minot Forest Elementary School. Minot was closed last year due to its deteriorated infrastructure. WCTV toured with Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood, our superintendent of Wareham Public Schools, Miss Joan Simmons, Minot Forest Principal, and Mr. Bernard Pigeon, a member of the Minot Forest School Building Committee. So please take a look.
So this is an example of the front door at Minot where it is not handicap accessible, and in order for our families to come in, they have to call us on the phone. We would have to go to the bus lobby to let them in where there is a ramp, or they have to go to the back of the building where there was a ramp in order for them to get in and access this building.
You can also see that as you walk in, there's no security. So a person could walk in and the ladies or the clerical staff are exposed. There's also no way to stop anyone from moving into a hallway on either side if they were upset or an irate person, and they could be in the classroom in a matter of seconds. The new proposed building certainly has a space where people would be housed until it was determined if they should enter or if they should not.
So the windows are original. They're single pane. So in the wintertime, it's very cold. The breeze and the drafts would just come right through. And next door we have the nurse's office, very small. It would get pretty crowded in here, so we do need to have a much bigger medical suite. This is one of the gymnasiums that we used. Parts of the floor, due to water and issues over the years, is lifting, and we tried the best we could to repair it, but unfortunately it continues to lift.
The water fountain. What we found is many of our water fountains are lead, and so they have to be shut off because we have to test all our water fountains on a yearly basis, and if there's too much lead coming out or there's something that's not chemically balanced, then the water fountain is shut down. One of the things that is causing us difficulty is the age of the pipes and the condition of the pipes instead of the water.
So this is the wheelchair lift that we replaced about 3 years ago. This accesses this half of the building. And you'll see along the wall we had to run conduit wire because we could not access the ceiling tiles due to the asbestos in the ceiling tiles. So these are the boilers that heat the building. As you can see, quite large, not as efficient. There'll be days in the winter where half the building is really hot and the other half is not quite up to temperature yet. So they are original. We have to be careful around the piping. There is asbestos around it. We also have the generator that's tucked underneath, which is original, and we can't get parts for it anymore. So in this classroom, you can see the classroom floor. These are asbestos tile. So as long as they're intact, there's not a problem at all. The custodians can only do a very small section of repair to them. They have very special training they have to go through. But if we need a bigger job, then we have to hire a company. So anytime you can see, for instance, the blue tile, that was an area that the custodians could do. You can see the shelves, they're metal. So over the years, with all the weight, they're really starting to buckle. A couple of the motors had gone in the univents, and you can't get parts for them, so we had to rebuild the motor. So the classrooms were without heat for a good couple of weeks until we were able to get that fixed. And you can see examples of the clocks that are missing because they stopped working long ago. Over here by the sink, you'll see there used to be an electrical outlet, but it had to be capped off. So the teachers lost one of their outlets they could use. This is an example of the water fountain that was turned off. The students could not use it because of the lead inside the water. And we had signs here that said hand washing only. One of the other elements we battled a lot during the summer was the humidity. And a lot of times it would just get underneath the tiles and it would lift them. And this used to be the entranceway to the portable classrooms that we had. But we had to tear those down because they had deteriorated so poorly. And we lost 4 classrooms. We had the original elevator. We always kept our fingers crossed when we needed to use it. Again, it was getting to the end of its span of life. It couldn't be adjusted anymore, so every once in a while the doors would open and the floor wasn't even. So that takes a little bit of tweaking in the elevator room, and the contractor said there wasn't very much room left to adjust anymore. So this is one of the gyms. Obviously we've been storing furniture here for now. When we moved over to the middle school, some classrooms took furniture with them, some used the furniture that was there. But it was the music room because Mr. Hart lost his classroom when we lost the portable classrooms. And the art teacher stored her materials here, but she traveled to the classrooms on a cart. This was another room we always had to be careful of in the summer because it's below ground level. We always had to keep the dehumidifiers running, and you can hear that now, so that the mold didn't begin.
One of the issues they had when they talked in terms of renovation of this building, you could easily come in and replace all the plumbing, all the electrical, those issues, and you'd still be stuck with a 50-year-old building, and most of it would cost the town because MSBA doesn't pay for those kind of things. If you renovated it, in order to match MSBA requirements for reimbursement, you'd have so much square footage on a classroom. Of all these 2 quarters of classroom to match that, you would probably lose minimum of 2 classrooms on either side. So now you have fewer classrooms because of the renovation, and you'd have to add more building.
Right, because these classroom sizes do not match what the Department of Education says that they should be.
So it'd be more costly.
As well, the building project encompasses both Minot and Deacon's. If we renovated or rebuilt it would just be Minot, and Deacon's is a separate project. In likelihood for us to get in to do something for Deacon's would be at least 5 to 10 years, and then that would go to a vote if the townspeople would address it. So given the conditions of both buildings, MSBA recognized the fact that Deacon's needs to be upgraded or replaced as well, and that's why we're able to come in with 2 buildings into one. And this doesn't happen very often with MSBA, so we feel fortunate that they recognize the need and has allowed us to have this kind of opportunity.
It makes better sense to have a brand new school than the addition and the renovation. We would have to add on to this building because we do not have enough classrooms in this building for our current needs.
And if you add on, one of the pieces that we found is because Minot's sitting on a historical site, everything must be tested before we could dig and excavate. If we would run into any ruins, everything will stop. So that was one of the reasons why we made the decision, the building committee made the decision to build on the existing footprint. And in order to do that, we had to find a place for our Minot students to go in this.
Well informed by that video, and you were able to understand why the school had to be shut down. Please stay with us. We'll be right back with Today in History. Hello, and thank you for joining us this morning. We are broadcasting live from our WCTV studio in Wareham. This is Good Morning Wareham, your source for local news, weather, traffic, and more information. And now for a moment in history. We are going to take a look at where we were today in history. So today, back in February 13th, 1945, we look back to World War II, to a controversial yet little talked about part of European campaign. On February 13th, 1945, the Allied forces dropped firebombs on the German city of Dresden. The once beautiful city was decimated, and thousands of civilians were killed, though the true number is not known because there were countless numbers of undocumented refugees in the city during that time. One later famous man, Kurt Vonnegut, was present during these bombings as he was a prisoner of war. He would later return home to America and write about his time in Dresden in the book Slaughterhouse 5. And to another history fact, today, February 13th, in the year 2000, 19 years ago today, Charles Schwarzenegger had been had the final Peanuts comic published. The popular comic strip ran for nearly half a century, delighting readers every day. Popular characters like Charlie Brown and Snoopy have lit from the page to film and television over the years and hold a spot in the hearts of millions today. In the final strip, Schwartz announced the end of comic, saying that making Peanuts had been his fulfillment of his childhood ambition. Schwartz died on February 12, the year 2000, the day before the final strip was released. And you have guessed it, whose birthday is it today? Like every other day, we highlight those celebrating their big day today. In the year 1944, Jerry Springer, popular talk show host and actor, was born on this day in London, England. He hosted the popular Ranchy Jerry Springer show from 1991 to 2018. But before television, he led a very busy life. Springer, at the age of 19, was an advisor for Robert Kennedy's political campaign, and he would later become mayor of Cincinnati in 1977. His new show, Judge Jury, is set to release later this year. And also in 1977, former Patriots star Randy Moss also has a birthday today. He is turning 42. Moss played most of his career with the Vikings in Minnesota, playing with New England from 2007 and 2010. Moss was a part of the 16-0 campaign the Patriots had in 2007, which ended in a Super Bowl loss to the Giants, the only time Moss would make it to the big game. Moss is an NFL Hall of Famer with the 4th most career receiving yards and 2nd most career receiving touchdowns. That is it for Today in History segment. To learn more about cool historical facts, please go online under history.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The coffee segment is next. But look at our events calendar. Thank you for being with us this morning. You are watching the Good Morning Wareham show. We are broadcasting live from our WCTV studio in Wareham. So as I mentioned that on Wednesdays we take a time during the show to dedicate it to public schools. We talk to public schools officials. Last week, we spoke to the superintendent, Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood. We got to know a little bit about her, who she is, her time prior to Wareham, what she has done here in Wareham, her accomplishments, and the work ahead. Next week, we are going to air my interview with Miss Tracy Cote, the new Wareham Middle School principal. As you all know, she has taken over after Dr. Peter Stedman, who left us last summer. And Miss Cote has been at the middle school as an interim principal since last summer. And just recently, she got the promotion. She is our new Wareham Middle School principal. So I'll be speaking to her actually tomorrow, and the interview will air on Wednesday next week during the Good Morning Wareham show. But today we will be airing an interview I did with the Dr. Sheverhood, Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood, where we discussed the Minot Forest Elementary School, a $90 million project that the town has approved. And according to my discussion with her last week, hopefully in 2 years, we'll see the new school that is going to be built right where the Minot Forest Elementary is at the moment. So stay with us and take a look at this video. Following the closing of Minot Elementary, the 4 Wareham public schools are adjusting to the changes. Meanwhile, the Wareham Elementary School Building Committee is hard at work for the approval and the building of a new Wareham Elementary School. Joining me in the studio is the Superintendent of Wareham Public Schools, Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. Thank you for coming in to continue our talks, among many, regarding this new Wareham Elementary School. So let's start with this school year has brought a lot of changes.
It has.
So how is the current arrangement fitting the needs of our town?
Well, we're off to a wonderful start. We, as you know, moved students out of Minot. They're now at the middle school. Our preschool students are at Deacon's. And what we're finding is our preschool is integrating with kindergarten, first, second, and grade. And it's just going, it's very nice. The staff at Deacon's have welcomed the preschool. What we're finding is an opportunity to work with our older students working with younger students, and it's really a nice mix. However, what I will say is we are at absolute capacity with rooms. We, as you remember, we had gone to the town to ask for modulars, but due to some very creative positioning of classes, of offices, etc., we did not need to use the $800,000 to purchase the modulars. Instead, we have one modular that we are leasing, and we will house offices in that modular. So no students will be in a modular building except for our existing modulars that have been there. When you move over to the middle school, with the Minot students, we're now 3, 4, and then the middle school 5, 6, 7. Once again, it's smooth. The Minot teachers are very grateful for enough electrical plugs. As you know, in Minot, we only had about 1 plug per classroom. We were not able to add additional technology or even additional anything electrical because of the age of the electrical circuits. So they're very happy about that. And it's crowded as well. We're at capacity as far as rooms go, but everybody's making it work. The students are loving it. We're seeing some nice interactions with students, and there's some new opportunities because of some of the facility that we have at the middle school that Minot didn't have. And then we moved the 8th grade to the high school, and it's been a wonderful start. If we could have had not 90-degree plus days on the first day of couple days of school, you know, it went very well.
I think that we needed those 2.5 days, especially with the changes that we have gone through. People needed a little dress rehearsal to see how everything is going.
That was a comment that I heard from many staff about while we didn't want the heat, but how nice the half day was to get the students in, acclimated, and then get them home. That's something that we may consider when we get ready to build the calendar for the next school year, is a half first day, just because of how it works so well for students.
Absolutely. So am I hearing overall that things are going okay? I'm hearing capacity issue. We
are at capacity. There's really no spare rooms in any buildings. You know, we have social workers, and we've had to really look at where we can have social workers in certain spaces just because we're maxed out.
Okay. Now, by saying we're maxed out, is that enough to say, let's go and build a new school?
We believe so.
Okay.
We believe that given our population, given the school program and the educational program that we would like to offer for our students, a new school is certainly a viable option.
Very good. So let's talk about the closing of Minot Elementary, and I've heard this from various people in the town. And their main question is, why did the school committee vote to close the school prior to approving a new one?
Okay. Well, one of the reasons we voted to move the students out of Minot, number one, if we move them out and if the town approves the borrowing, we can start the demolition of Minot right away. We also would need a space to house our students when you look at building on the same footprint. And because the building committee voted to build on the same footprint, it, number one, saves money for the town. We can do it at a little bit quicker pace, which means we save money. And if you know about the land around Minot, there's some historical site. We did not want to run into any artifacts should we choose to use a different footprint. And so it just made sense when you looked at the Minot spot to build on that footprint. We looked at some other spots as well. We looked at Town Hall area, and because of the floodplain and some other concerns, we were going to have to build up the land with fill to the tune of anywhere from $1 to $2 million of just fill. We also are a little concerned about the traffic pattern if we put everyone over in that one complex. So it just didn't make sense with the added expense, the size of the building, and the location. So that's why we really went back to the Minot.
All right, very good. So I looked at this chart, and this was one of the earlier charts. It showed that building a 3-story building was going to be cheaper than a 2-story building. Could you explain to us, my thinking is you pay more per brick. Could you explain to us how that is?
Well, when you look at the build, when you build up, you're not building out so much. And because of the way the architects have designed, when you put on top of one room on top of another, you know, we're condensing the space.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
The new Wareham Elementary School is estimated to cost $90.3 million, in which MSBA will reimburse us with $59.8 million, and Wareham residents will share $39.5 million in taxes, which is approximately 0.66 to 0.81 of additional taxes, roughly 170 to 210 annually for an average single home. Let's start with the math. Is $90.3 million the final price tag?
No, actually, we're right now looking at getting our final estimates. We look at the reimbursement will be just over $50 million. We're at 75% reimbursement. And that figure has moved a little bit. One time it came in at 73 point something percent. And that's where we hovered. But because we're doing some green efficiencies and we've met some other thresholds, we've bumped it up to 75%. We feel very happy about that. The highest possible percentage that the state is giving at this time is 80%. So 75% is pretty much unheard of. I know the Carver, I believe they were at 60 something percent. So we're coming in higher than that. When we look at the schematic designs, we expect our numbers to come in on October 1. Okay. At that time, we will have our numbers. We'll be able to divide out what it would cost per household, and what the town's share is. It's a debt exclusion. It's not an override, but a debt exclusion. At this point, a decision has not been made about the length of borrowing, but that's all will be factored in, and we can share the information then with the town about what their exact cost would be should they agree to go out and borrow. Okay. Now you mentioned this, oh my goodness, the plans. I'm having trouble saying this word. But are you hoping that the $90.3 million will go lower or higher? What's the feeling like? We certainly are capping out at, we will not go over $90 million. Okay. In one of the exercises that we've been doing on a very, very regular basis is to go over the square footage, to go over the possible design materials that will be going in, and we look at what could come in, what can come out. One of the final exercises as a building committee that we will have in October will be to look at what the cost is per item. And so if we, like if you look at the floor, and let's just say, because terrazzo is a very nice floor, but it's pretty expensive. So we will take into consideration what it would cost to put the floor in, what it would cost for a lower grade floor, and then we also will be looking at maintenance, longevity, etc., to come up with a product that stays within our means. And I think that's one of the things that we've worked very hard at doing, is providing the type of structure that meets the educational plan for our students, but still recognize that we're not asking for the Taj Mahal or some elaborate, outlandish school. We need a school that will meet the needs of our students, that's a reasonable cost to the taxpayers. And you mentioned that we're not building a fancy building, but yet you hear people say $90 million for an elementary school. How do you justify that? Well, when you look at the cost in the past several years, we see the climb. What we also know is we're getting 75% reimbursement from the state. Now, the state has that money to give. Either Wareham's going to accept it because these are our tax dollars that we've paid in, or it's going to go to another community for their build. That's a decision that the Wareham residents will need to make. So we certainly hope that they'll take that into consideration, look at the reimbursement that we're going to have, and to look at what they're going to get for their money. We do know that because of the rising cost, the longer we wait, the higher the cost is going to be.
And also to add to that, we're not only replacing one school, we're replacing two schools at the same time.
We are, and that's a little bit unusual with MSBA. When we came into this project, we came in for Minot. But because of the age of DECUS and because of the infrastructure difficulties at DECUS, we proposed a plan with MSBA that we would like to build one building for two schools. And we had to spend quite a bit of time speaking with MSBA, writing an educational plan that would justify this merger, and they agreed with us after touring DECUS. So for us to be able to have this opportunity, it's not commonplace in the Commonwealth to do so. But when you look at both structures, we desperately need it. If we went ahead and just built the Minot building and did not address DECUS, we probably wouldn't have another opportunity, at least through MSBA, for 5 to 10 years. We know that we're at the end of our longevity with many of the infrastructures with DECUS, that we're really not sure it's going to last another 5 to 10 years. And so that's why the decision was made to combine both and go with one.
Very good. Now, you mentioned the 75%. The MSBA can reward up to 80%. We are at 75%. So are we saying that out of that, let's say if it's 90.3 million, 75% of that is going to be paid by MSBA, or 75% of the reimbursed rate?
75% of the reimbursed rate, which is, we need to really make sure that everybody understands that. I would love to be able to say 75% is reimbursable, total cost, but it's not. MSBA has some guidelines that we need to stay within, and once you reach that cap, you're at that cap. We're not really sure exactly where we're at yet because we haven't received the estimates, but we know that we're working very hard to make sure that we maximize our total reimbursement.
Okay, very good. Do you know some of the things that maybe we can't opt from, that they're either reimbursed by MSBA, but we quite need them in our community? Some of, when you look at some of the demolition, they'll pay for the demolition of most of the building, but such as asbestos tile, they might not pay for the demolition of that. So that would become a town cost. Still needs to be done. It's just how we work those figures. Okay, very good. So you're saying these numbers are going to be with us October 1st?
They will be released to the building. We're meeting as a building committee on October 1st. We will go through all of the information, and then we will, because we think that's very important for the town's people to know what exactly they're voting on.
Okay, very good. Now, let's go with the 90.3 million as the number that we currently have. When you take the 39.5 million that Wareham residents will be paying, and the 59.8 million that will be coming from MSBA, it doesn't add to 90.3 million. How is this math going?
Well, part of it, the reimbursement is coming off a certain portion of the 90 million. And right now, I don't know that. Here's what, I'd really like to answer your question, but here's what I'm afraid to do, is because I think it's so important to have the accurate figures at this point. For me to make a guess isn't, I don't want to step into that one.
Then people are going to hold you accountable.
Yes,
you
they
said
will.
This.
Yeah.
So what's the next process in the building process to assure this new elementary school?
Right. So right now, it really hinges on town meeting and the ballot vote. So when we go to town meeting, the voters will vote to move the question forward, and it's really looking at, will they put it on the ballot? When our voters come to the ballot, will they vote to appropriate the money? At that point, if it's approved, we have about one more year of very, very, very detailed design. We then will go out to bid, and we're probably about a year and a half from the actual groundbreaking. What would start in relatively shorter time would be the demolition of Minot.
Okay. So this upcoming town meeting, what exactly are we asking the voters to do?
We're asking the voters if they will move the ballot question forward to borrow for the money.
Okay.
At town meeting, we are not voting to build a new school. We're merely voting on moving the question forward.
Okay. And how optimistic are you?
Well, I certainly know that many of our residents live paycheck to paycheck. I know that we have a number of retired people that live in this community, and when you ask them to really spend more money, it's a hard decision. But I would also offer that for the children of Wareham and for our future in Wareham, I hope that they will give that full consideration.
Okay. And then when it comes to November, to vote if we should build the school or not. Do we have ideas of what we will do to Deacon's building if the new school is built?
Right. When we would move into the new school with our Deacon's students, then we would turn the school back to the town, and I believe the town has several ideas of what they would like to do with the property and the building.
Okay, very well. So it sounds like everything is in order, and of course people can always reach out to you with more questions. What do you urge them? How can they find the correct information? We can get a little bit hazed out there.
Right. You know, what I do know is there are many, many, many rumors circulating. There's much misinformation circulating. So I would urge people to go to our website. And on our website, if you scroll down, you'll see construction information. If you'll just click on that, it will take you to, you'll see our plans, you'll see the different questions and answers, and you'll find out a place if you have other questions, you can send them in. What I would also let you know, while our buildings have been well maintained, certainly there are things that we could have done. Our custodial crew and everyone worked very hard. We're now past the life expectancy of our buildings. I would be very happy to show people the infrastructure, the places that you don't normally see. That's the heart and soul of a building. It needs help.
Okay, very good. So this question, and I'm not hoping for this to happen, but in case the ballot question doesn't move, in case in this upcoming town meeting the town people do not approve to move the question to November, what are the arrangements? Are we going to stay where we are?
Yes, we are. We will stay where we are. We'll also look at, the MSBA has a contingency that what we can do. We will look at that. But I would urge people to please, please ask for a tour. Look at why we're asking for a new building. Things have changed. Educational offerings have changed. The way we deliver educational services. And with aged facilities, it's very hard to meet students' needs in such structures.
And how patient is MSBA with towns that do not approve things right away?
MSBA is not patient. MSBA this past had over 100 plus applications. They're only taking 20 to build. So there's a line of people that would love to have the money that they're offering us.
Okay, so it should feel quite special At least we got to that. To
We
this level.
did.
Okay.
We did.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for being in our studio, Dr. Shaverhud.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
To my viewers, thank you for joining us in another episode of The Official Report, filmed right here at WCTV Studio with me, your host, Queen Banda. My guest was the Superintendent of Wareham Public Schools, Dr. Kimberly Shaverhud, here to discuss the new Wareham Elementary School. We're hoping to have it built soon. But meanwhile, you have plenty of homework to do and voting starting this October. Until next time, I wish you all a wonderful day. Reflecting on that interview, I learned so much that day from Dr. Kimberly Shaverhud of the new school, what it's going to take to build it. Normally when we think, I remember when the idea surfaced about in the beginning of building a new Wareham Elementary School, people were resistant to it, and I can understand why. It's going to take our tax dollars to build this new school. We have to raise taxes in this town, and some people are wondering, for what, if I have my kids in the school, maybe. If I do not have kids in the school, what am I getting from it? But to that point, you have to think back to who paid for your education. Our director here at WCTV always reminds me that the education you got, your parents didn't pay for it. Somebody's parents did. Your grandparents paid for it. So it's almost like you gotta pay back for the education you got. I personally feel that we do definitely need the new school. As you watched the video, the first one, the tour of Minot Elementary, why we need to tear down the building, why we need to build a new school instead of expanding on it, instead of renovating. Because if we only focus on Minot, we are dismissing another key problem, and that is DCAS. That still, it's in a crumbling state just as Minot. They're holding by. So by diminishing, by taking down Minot Forest, we get to have two schools in one. All our children will be in one location. For those parents running around dropping their kids at Minot, at DCAS, at elementary, and at the Wareham High School, maybe now you only have to do 3 rounds. You have to do Minot, middle school, and the high school. So the commute becomes a little bit easier. And of course, I think the new school is going to raise maybe our property values. Kids will stay, families will move here. We have a great, terrific school, so they will come and check it out. Our children deserve a safe place, a brand new place to learn, and not to focus on the dripping ceiling when it's raining or power shortages, rather than to just have a safe place where they can focus on their learning. And due to this project, as you all know, we had to, the school committee had to play around with the grade configuration. The pre-Ks are in DCAS, the Minot Forest students are in middle school, and 8th grade is now at high school, which so far seems it's going okay. Middle school is a little bit cramped. The high school, we had the space. So they're happy to have the 8th graders there. We're not quite sure yet if 8th graders will stay at the high school even with the new elementary school, or if they will go back to middle school. But so yeah, we almost have to like bite the bullet and do this for our kids. I personally do not have children yet, but I'm excited for those who get to go to the new high school, and I'm excited for the parents who their children will finally get the new school. So that's my little spiel on this issue. I would like to thank you very much for joining us this morning for the Good Morning Wareham show. Without you, we do not have a show. Thank you for watching constantly. This is episode 12, which I'm happy with. And we'll continue to do this show for as long as it takes. I've learned so much being here and doing this show. Thank you for waking up at 9 in the morning. And if you have missed us this morning, do not worry, because this episode will re-air this evening at 6 p.m. And if you missed that, don't worry either, because we are going to be right back here on this desk on Friday, which is going to come here before you know it. And my guest, I will hear from a gentleman who is trying to get a track and field team together from the Cape, and also to involve the schools here in Wareham to get a team together and do some great work there. So we're going to hear from him on Friday. And I hope Wareham Week will be here. Matt Burnett has left Wareham Week, but the Wareham Week has hired a new reporter, Lydia. I cannot yet pronounce her last name. She's Russian. It's a very long name, so I'm not going to make a fool out of myself. But hopefully we'll have her here one of these days so you can get to know about her. So with that, thank you, Wareham, and I hope to see you on Friday. Have a good morning, Wareham. Bye.